some kind of service that, something that gives back. And originally it was set up for, just to promote leadership.
Okay, great. What did we decide to do about financials? I heard that you'd like to invite Chris, which I think is great. Maybe I can invite Chris and Darren to the next meeting. Did you want to accept either month or wait until September?
Thoughts? In my opinion, I don't have enough information here in context. It's hard for me to, without some questions answered, I think it's tough to accept.
Okay.
Does that create any kind of timing issue?
I don't think so. I mean, technically, the board reviews the financials as a transparency mechanism.
Right.
It's not required necessarily by the Secretary of State. I mean, you're responsible for them, so that's why we do it. So I think everything should be okay for us to proceed, and I feel like in a month we'll have a better grasp on creating the report and on finishing fiscal year 2021.
Mike had a question if it would be possible, because aren't we currently running the softwares concurrently?
We are not running the Sage software anymore.
Okay.
We stopped running it about the start of the fiscal year, I think.
Okay, then
So
never mind.
We still have access to it, but we're not updating it.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to explore if there are reports in that provide us like an overview report
Okay.
without so much detail in addition to the detail, just for us to be able to sort of take a look at I think that'll maybe help with readability.
Okay. So more of high-level overview, summary information, kind of like what was provided before, but maybe in a new format you're okay with.
Yeah, and I'm also noticing, I think in the previous format, and I'm not sure if this was a hand-done piece, but the general fund, previously we received recap information for aquatics in the various sort of sections that are contained in the general fund.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that they have line items with coding here to be able to do that this time, so I don't know how hard it is and whether or not that's important for us to have visibility to how much is being spent across those categories that spend down out of the general fund.
Okay. That sounds great. I appreciate your patience on this and apologize. It's been kind of an ordeal and bad timing for a couple of different things to run concurrently.
Yeah, I think we are very understanding of all of that, for sure. We did look over the check register, and I think for both months we didn't have any additional questions, so that part at least was good.
Okay. Sounds great.
Old business, the Anchor Christian Academy donation proposal. Skylar?
Yes. Sorry, there we are. Looking for my notes here. Okay, so I'm actually going to ask the board if we can combine kind of A and B. I had come to the board in, I think, May and June with a proposal from Anchor Christian Academy, which is a private school in Hammond, or Warrenton, that asked to receive some of the items that we had left over from the sale of the what is now the SRC. The board provided some great feedback on some action steps that they'd like to see to ensure, I think, transparency, equity, access to these items as well as just handling them in the best possible way. So I want to kind of give an update, and I guess going to kind of go in reverse order. So so what we've done is taken the following action as far as what we're going to do with those items, and this has come after some discussions with the board, including those meetings. So we decided to have to host 2 kind of garage sale type events for the community to come. They'll be able beforehand to view our website, and we'll have updated pictures and some pricing information on what's available there, and then they'll come. We have one date on Wednesday, September 15th, and then another date later that week on Saturday, September 18th. There'll be a total of about 5 hours that they'll be able to come and, like I said, peruse. Seems like an appropriate garage sale word. We've secured a Pacifica Project volunteer, a senior, who also works for the district in our aquatics department, and he's really excited to help. Like I said, we'll be updating our website with pictures and kind of finalizing some pricing information and trying to make it really easy for folks to understand and also get through the SRC that day. And then all of the proceeds will benefit the Foundation Scholarship Fund, which I think is actually in some need of bolstering right now because of we haven't been able to have, our major fundraiser, what used to be Sweet Affair and is now called Sip and Savor. In the meantime, going back to item A, we've received kind of some further communication from Anchor Christian Academy, hoping to secure the previously requested items. And in communicating with them, I shared that the board was, kind of the position that you took in the previous meeting, and they understood that. They offered a sizable donation of $1,000 to the foundation for the items that they requested. We've priced out the items that they requested, and even if we sold all of these items at the community garage sale, it far exceeds what we would receive from the garage sale, just because of pricing. So I think from staff's perception, or staff's what's that? Perspective, thank you. It's a very generous offer, and I guess our recommendation is that we accept this request from them, and the reason being is that it helps us, with a sizable amount of scholarship funds, helps us part with a good amount of some of the items that are there. And one thing that we are a little leery of is having more of these items left behind for us to have to dispose of at a later date, because that can be very costly and helps a nonprofit school in our area before the school year. They start school on September 7th, so time is kind of, we're a little bit behind as far as ideally. So I bring this to the board again and hope that these steps are what you were hoping for as far as the sale of the items, and I'm looking for approval if you think it's wise to part ways with some of these items to Anchor Christian Academy, and then move forward with the selling of the other items.
Thank you, Skylar.
Yep.
Questions, discussion?
No,
Okay.
I just appreciate the work that your team did at coming up with a plan to offer up to folks an opportunity to purchase at the September 15 and September 18 community garage sales. And I think that provides some equal opportunity in the community to access the surplus property that we have. And I think it's a super generous offer from Anchor Christian Academy, and will help our scholarship fund. So I appreciate that.
Sue?
I also appreciate that a high schooler with can use this project for his Pacifica project to fulfill that requirement. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Like a workable plan to me. I'm glad to see it get started on it. May need that space.
Oh, golly.
What is that?
It's my
Skylar.
microphone. It's a little touchy. Sorry.
Do we have a motion to approve the Anchor Christian Academy donation / sales of items?
Yeah, so moved, and in addition to approve the plan to dispose of the other surplus items identified by staff.
Do we have a second? Thank you,
A
Celeste.
second?
Thank you, Sue. All in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. Sue?
Aye.
Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you. And I should note the student, his name is Everett Rollins.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Should want to make sure I give him credit where credit is due.
I was figuring it was an Oosley.
Yeah, I went down that road too, but Everett also works for us, so it's a great fit. He's a really good kid. He's going to help out at a couple of special events upcoming as well to make sure he gets his full hours and experience.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Board of Directors, job description and required training. Do you want to go over that, Skylar, or do you want me to?
Sure. So I just think it's important for visibility, for the board to understand. I know you have all been at least a year now in your roles as either, well, first you were appointed, some of you, and now you're all duly elected. This is the policy that the board sorry, I can't talk right now. The board adopted a few years back, and it has a couple tenets that need to be completed annually. I feel like this last year all of those points were met by all of the board members. I'm not sure if there's other things that need to be added. The other thing I included was the job description for director, and this is something that we typically share with prospective board members if we have a vacancy. I also shared it with folks during the election season just to give them some more perspective. The board may decide that it's perfectly appropriate, or they may decide that they'd like to update that, and I'm happy to field suggestions, or if the board wants to appoint one board member, one director to kind of help shepherd that process. I think it's really important for the board to, I guess, kind of set this because it's their, it's their position to hold. It's not mine to tell them exactly what a board member should be doing. So wanted to just bring it for visibility if nothing else, but if there's discussion or action items that you need, I'm happy to help facilitate that.
I believe, didn't you sign us all up for the training? It's coming up soon, correct?
Yeah, so I believe it's Mike and Sue are signed up for the SDAO board training in the end of the month, and they actually just announced today that that's going to be all virtual and all free, and I would expect that it's probably going to be retrievable because of COVID. They want to keep the groups down, and then but I know over the past year, I believe almost everybody participated in an SDAO training at some point. In addition, you all had Eileen come in January and provide training on board duties and board ethics, and I think that is sufficient since Eileen, she doesn't work for SDAO, but she partners with SDAO in providing that training.
Yeah, and she was very thorough.
Yeah.
Is it correct, we're having a training in Astoria on the 31st?
Yeah, so
Virtual.
they announced today that everything is going to be virtual for that training, Mike.
It is, so
Yep.
they canceled the in-person.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was wondering about that. I was thinking it might be wise to change it
Yeah.
to virtual. Will we get a link for that?
You will. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
I will make sure you have it, or it should come directly to your email.
Yeah.
Do we have like a checkoff list? Like, I mean, like you have the bullet points, but do we have something saying so-and-so has completed these trainings, check, 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 check? Like for each board member? Is that something that?
I don't typically, well, I guess I kind of have that in my head, but don't necessarily write it down and share it with the board or with the public.
It might be nice, I don't know, you can think, but it might be nice to have like, they completed this training on this date and this date, just so we can kind of keep track.
Sure.
Well, just this, well, just this list, but then we would have, the board members' names and then the dates that we've completed these particular items, so we can just kind of know in our mind, like, okay, because, a year goes by quickly.
I could do that and provide a quarterly or semi-annual update to the board if you'd
I would
like.
just say, even if something's like coming, like, okay, it's been a year since you did this training,
Sure.
you could just go to that director and be like, hey, just FYI, it's been
Okay.
a year.
Scott, Ray, correct me if I'm mistaken, Did I volunteer to do the ORPA training already?
I don't believe you did, but I can,
No.
I'm definitely,
You could go ahead and sign me up.
okay.
No, I think that was gonna be virtual anyway.
It is virtual, yeah.
There was one training that you signed all of us up for.
I think that was SDAO conference. It was free because it was all virtual. I don't really know.
No, there was something coming up recently. I got I'll look through my email.
Huh.
But you signed. There was,
Is that gonna be in person? Is SDAO
So
gonna be
right
in
now
person?
the SDAO conference, right now the SDAO conference in February is planning to be in person, but I think obviously there's a lot that could change between now and then.
anyway, I'll find it and ask
You let me know, sorry
Yeah. No,
for
that's
the
okay.
confusion.
Any questions for Skylar on the trainings or any other discussion?
Or the job
Or the job
too.
description?
Yeah.
I thought it was very thorough.
Okay. Well, we can continue discussing this kind of as we move forward. I think it's important to recognize the amount of time that the volunteers on the board put in, including in this area, just to, kind of professional development, I guess is what I would call it. So appreciate your efforts and your volunteer
Thanks, Skylar.
volunteer spirit.
Okay, Mary, you're up.
Mary, can I help you with technology? Are we still? Okay, great.
You need that.
She's gonna get a mic.
Please use the microphone.
Hey Skylar, she has some show and tell items that she wanted to be a little bit closer. So can we just maybe move the mic to the stand there? Yeah? There we go. Perfect. We have a presentation tonight from Mary Goff, who is the Clatsop County 4-H Volunteer Club leader.
This text is sometimes really crazy. This is really gross. You didn't say that, but it does like captions on TV. Sometimes it throws up some bad words and bad connotations.
That's hilarious.
I know, I get some chuckles from this thing, but it can mask this stuff. I don't understand how.
Yeah,
It's not working that great tonight.
that's because Darren's not here to save us.
Great, I want to go slowly, and then there's probably going to be some times when you guys want me just to go faster than Well, I have the basics at first, and that's what you see the slides, and then I brought just images of students that are in this age group doing the sorts of things that we're proposing to do at the center. Yes, those sorts of things are very hard.
Did she used to be a former police officer?
Oh, you saw it first?
Was she a former police CIPD? Okay. Yeah.
So it's got a signal coming in
I'm-
on whatever.
I didn't get around to picking anything this year. Blueberries?
Okay, you can dial me up there. Is this, it is on? Test, yeah? Can you
Go with
guys
you,
hear me
you know
okay?
the spots.
Okay. I hope I don't. Sounds
Can
good.
we make it bigger? Is that possible?
Oh, so you're gonna, oh, 'cause I can.
That works. Thank you, Skylar. Thank you. Perfect.
Some of them are gonna be pretty slow and the other ones are gonna go.
And Mary,
Yes, sir.
if you can just be sure to speak into this for Mike, it translates on the pad there for him.
Ah, can you? Yeah, it is. Can you? Okay. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to come in this evening and talk to you about 4-H and the model of 4-H and how it might be applied to a very innovative program for teens that are not otherwise served by school activities, either whether they're teens that are within school programs this year in our county, whether they are students that are homeschooled, whether they are students who have at risk in some fashion, or whether they've dropped out entirely. This has been on my mind for a long time as an educator, third generation teacher out of 4 generations in the Northwest. So this is where we're going to kind of be exploring that intersection between what might be a consideration of space being used at the Sunset Recreational Center. So actually, Len, I want to just kind of go back for a second. I'm going to look sideways and try to keep remembering that I need to talk and chew gum here. Yeah, I just wanted to say I had shared a bit about my background with Skylar, and if anyone wants to know more, there's more than enough to, keep you busy for a while. The other piece of it is I just put some references on his table because if I were you all, I would want to know a little bit more about, how does this person represent 4-H in a building that we are responsible for overseeing. So it ranges from folks in terms of my last landlord, who was the district attorney in Coos Bay, who had some things to say about how well I treated his property, to students that have benefited from the kinds of programs that I'm proposing that we offer, to parents and co-leaders and colleagues and supervisors. So you will know a little bit more than I'm able to share or what's known. I've been back in this area for about 2.5 years, and I'm happy to answer any questions about my experience since I've been back to Clatsop County. Anyway, so growing up in rural Oregon, it is true, 4-H programs and Scouts were really the 2 ways outside of school that I was able, a lot of my friends were able to develop their interests and their talents and their leadership skills. So that's kind of where I'm starting from. The title I thought was kind of cute, but Oh Give Us a Home is what we're looking for. And I can tell you that we are also looking at possibly using the South County as the role model, the prototype, but we also realize that there is a great need in the North County. And in 2 days, if anyone wants to be a part of either Zoom or in-person training, Sandra Carlson, who is the head of OSU 4-H Extension, leading the next 4-H leadership training for adult volunteers. And right now we have one city's planning commissioner that is dedicated to this program. We have another city commissioner in a certain town. We also have a young Hispanic ranger from Fort Clatsop with 3 children who will be watching the children while he's Zooming with us on his day off because he also sees the great need for this kind of program. We have some other folks that are looking at joining us, and our goal is to get a number of co-leaders that can work with me, and maybe, you know, I can take some time off for good behavior as well. But that's kind of the big picture, and I'll show you a few pictures quickly in a minute. Goals, as you can see, are really for 14-year-olds and up. We designated 14 because that really is high school age. It's a bit different than a program Sandra Carlson already does, which is for any teen. And this one is more of an upper level emerging young adult kind of program. And because I started my teaching career in our community colleges and our universities in the state, and was also an employment counselor for the Department of Employment in Oregon, I do clearly see how what kids are able to learn and have practical skills is going to lead them further, and that's part of my personal goal, is to help them understand and have opportunities to make those connections as they go through the program. You probably will want, and I apologize for just reading off the slide, but these are important things. The program is meant to, again, safe and supportive atmosphere. Inexpensive is the word I put in there because I know that you want to know if we are paying members or whether we are asking for a space for free. Remind me that I want to propose some opportunities that students will likely be doing fundraisers, and that is part of a 4-H model, as you know. The kinds of projects they might be doing are ones that are more appropriate for older teens in a variety of ways, and stay tuned, I have one that I want to just run by you before the time's up here. Guided by 4-H trained background check adults and co-leaders, and we, regular meetings, the regularity is really important. Whether it happens weekly in the afternoon for about 3 hours, bi-monthly, is really going to be kind of a combination of resources and time and people, but it has to be something that's offered frequently enough where students can build skills and a sense of team building and, you know, being together on projects, and that's, I think, going to be really an important motivator for them. And again, it's going to be starting with interests and helping teens bring their opinions. They do have opinions even if they aren't necessarily engaged in the learning process to begin with. So we're going to be starting with some kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of soliciting ideas about interests and opinions, and also promoting, even from day one, the idea that this is an active learning kind of club. And I guess the other thing I will mention right now is the elephant in the room is COVID and how that will factor through, but we will be following all of the guidelines that OHA and 4-H and Sunset Empire will be, you know, imposing, which is good because that really gives us a lot of checks and balances as we move forward. And again, the 4-H model is positive youth development with equity, opportunity, access, and inclusion. Okay, thank you. This was of what is in the training manual. And again, you can kind of see the tiered approach, starting with positive youth development at the top of it. It's guided by this thriving model, which is one that is the 4-H version of positive, constructive, social emotional learning is kind of another piece of it, but it's it really is a recognition that students all have talents, they all have attributes that can be brought out. There's a term called spark, to bring out the spark of each student in a respectful way that develops over time. So that's part of the model for 4-H. And in the blue ovals on the left, you can see that club-based is one area, which is where we're going to be, putting this program in place if we can do this. There's teen ambassadors, and I'll talk a little bit about some opportunities for teens to talk to teens or be involved with teen things that are, they happen in schools for some students, but whether or not the kinds of students who are presently pretty disengaged from learning, from their, they're pretty turned upside down, and there's a number of them across our county. This program is a chance to help them kind of find their bearings again after some pretty challenging couple of years. Okay, this is just a timeline that might be just briefly, you can read it as well as I can say it, but even though I have talked to a number of people for years that we're losing kids and that we have to find ways to help them, was this last year in March when Sandra and I first met and both looked at each other and said, yes, we need to move forward in this area. There's this sweet spot, developmental sweet spot for adolescents that we're just missing, and as much as younger programs are still recognized and offered, we have not paid as much attention to this potential and resource called our young adults and how to nurture their capabilities. So again, since April, I've been trained and been volunteering in different opportunities to get to know more about 4-H here in Clatsop County. And again, I think Michael might agree, but I was very pleased to see the efforts of young people coming together in different areas, particularly with animal husbandry, but even some other ones that 4-H offers. The quantitative data, which I'll just say briefly, we put together a survey, and in the upper right-hand corner, it's hard to see, but we plastered the county in the Seaside Signal, in the Daily Astorian. I was going around with these little things all over the place, and I gave it to all the school districts from Napa to Seaside and everybody in between to say, this is, we're starting this, we want your input. And everybody was invited to give input, whether you're a relative of a teen, whether you are a teen, whether you're an employer, it didn't matter. And then based on the inputs that we got, and it was a modest return, I would say there were about 35 folks that actually took the time to fill out a fairly detailed survey across interests, across what kinds of activities, what kind of format would you suggest, and also a little bit about locations. But based on that, and then kind of qualitative data about the feedback of where there was an interest, where there was more likelihood of buy-in for the program, where there were local folks that said, sure, I will be able to help out, including, and we'll see if we can get him, Matthew Johnson, one of your science teachers, which, because I'm a science teacher in disguise, we just hit it off like crazy. But recognizing that there are still a lot of dedicated people that will do anything for kids, but the group called teens, which can send some folks running from the room before they get a chance to know how wonderful they can be and all the wonderful affirmative kinds of connections one can make with them. So just to kind of fast forward, you can see that right now at the bottom, August through October, we are to the point now where 2 days from now we will offer that 4-H training. And then right after that, because I do have connections with counselors and as well as homeschool networks and other people, and I'm very interested in knowing more of any connections you all might have, but we're going to do a heavy outreach again And the hope is that some of the older students, I've been starting to get requests for kids that are, 18 or 19 and still think they could benefit from this sort of program, that there's going to be a developed youth leadership within the program. Should I move ahead here? I bet I'm keeping you guys, huh? I am. Okay, my goodness. Okay. Well, let's keep going then and just kind of quickly, briefly go through the other ones. In the who part, and you can read it, if you can read it on your slides, I certainly don't have to go over it. And I guess if you want to circle any questions, I can come back to those in a minute. But, again, it's open to any teen that's not things that are offered in any other way. And the bullet point I would drive your attention to is teens that are able and willing to progressively develop self-management skills, independent. But did this just go up? 14-year-olds are and take on a lot of responsibilities in the world. They are ones that should be able to take transportation. The timing is hopefully going to correspond with the in-service days, so in here, or the early release days. And so with that in mind, we're looking at offering things on Wednesday afternoons here starting around 2:30 for early arrivals and just a chance for people to settle in. And I will just tell you that there's going to be some rhythms and traditions that will kind of anchor students coming in, and then it's based on some other things. The collaborative model page I put in your little packet is the last one, and it represents the idea that everyone has something to offer. It's on the very back page, and it's kind of a written agreement to that is part of the early understanding that these are the elements that will allow folks to feel like they can belong in the club. And so it's a team building and the input and the collaboration that young people and old people alike all have something to give. Special outreach is going to go to underrepresented groups of every description, anyone who's considered alternative or non-traditional in any fashion. And this is the where part that I'm hoping you all would consider. It really, the Sunset Recreational Center really does tick a lot of boxes because it is a safe and supportive location. It's got a wholesome physical space with lots of possible ways to use it. And we would, in that space, have to have a minimum of 2 trained adults working with anywhere from a minimum about 6 to as many as 20 students. And when Skylar was kind enough to give Sandra and myself a tour, we are looking at possibly, the possibility of using one room that could be rehabbed specifically by the teens down to maybe color paint, and that they would be fundraising or finding ways to make it their own space with some tables. Any of those science labs would be awesome, but a place where they could store materials safely if the projects were not done from one time to the other, and then possible use of other special spaces as time and other people were involved. So that's, and again, practical skills development is the key to what we're talking about. And thinking outside the bowl, go ahead there fast, quickly. Oops, these are 6 areas that, based on the survey and the feedback we got, that represent places to start from, partly because there's an indicated interest from the survey and partly because we've had adult leaders, including myself. The STEAM one is mine, but there's a lot of other folks that are indicating interest and ability to help support a club. And so the whole teen one, I'm going to go through these quickly given the time, but each one of these we'll kind of break down to some ideas, and they're serving suggestions for, your reflection. We'll go forward fast. Okay, so this is, I'm going to just let you take a look, but I want to break them down. The bottom line on the bottom is just kind of showing you the progression of the teen club would help get teen voice and interest going, the practical skills and try it sessions, and then move forward out into the community for projects and leadership, and then the post-secondary connections that I was speaking to. Okay, I think that you can read. I'm not going to take any time other than to say that there's a lot of potential within these. Can I go back to the first response once for just a minute? This, by the way, has been one of the main ones, along with the career technical hands-on skills that people are starting to recognize. Years ago, I taught an integrated pre-medical course through Lynn Benton Community College, and have a bit of, I've taught anatomy and physiology for college credit, and whether it's that area or I work as a part of the community emergency response team right now, there, no surprises, are some huge interests and needs, and good paying careers that can come from these. So that's a possible interest. And these are all the ones, sorry, can we go back, Tyler, or Skylar? These are the ones that will be integrated throughout. The idea have physical development activities and fun. I would love to have more input about how that could be a break or a warm-up session or whatever to using the facilities. So thank you for that. And broadcast communications, the teen business and enterprising, whether it's the Biz Kids program, some of you might be familiar with, it's already done through 4-H, and interpersonal communications, which everybody could use a little help with at times. Okay. I just color-coded these, and I'm not going to take more time, but the starting ones that are in the blue color there at the top are the ones that would initially kind of be bringing them in, followed by the red ones, which are more at the point at which we've identified some interests and skills. Then going into the next section, the field surveys and field trips are looking outwards. Commissions, taking on different possibilities in the community. There's lots of possibilities. And then those of us who are familiar with high school, whether it's a senior project or anything like that, those kinds of things could also happen within the club for this population of learners. And then practicums. I know that's too much to read, so I think I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead. This is the three-legged stool, and I just want to say to you right now, in order to get to the top, which is the teens' hands-on engagement, skills, and leadership, we need to train the 4-H leaders. We need this safe, constructive, accessible location. And then we need to have the young people that are identified that are willing to join us in this process. And at that, I think I'm just going to hold the rest of it. There's lots of images that I'm willing to share at any point that represent students in action in a wide variety of fields for myself, and also ways that I can help guide that for others. But thank you for your courtesy in listening. Are there some questions that you'd like to ask me?
Go ahead, Sue.
As the CERT leader for Seaside, I'm curious about...
You're the Sue, okay.
Yes.
Are you, yeah, sorry.
I'm just curious about how active 4-H is with CERT.
To the best of my knowledge, it's not, but that's certainly, I'm looking at taking some of those train the trainer sessions that are coming up soon, and I thought that would be a natural buy-in. And when I talked to Puka about it, we emailed each other. She had said Tiffany tried to get one started a while ago and would be very interested if we could pull that off.
I think we should probably have a conversation, rather than a sidebar, to be putting our heads together about that, because we do have a Seaside CERT, a Warrenton CERT. Tiffany and Puka are involved with the Citizen Corps Corporation, but I think we get That's not the purpose for Sunset Empire. But I would like to talk with you more about it.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that I noticed in my time working in Warrenton that there were homeschooled 14-year-old boys that were wanting to be part of the cadet program. There are 19-year-olds that are interested in that, and if that, and I'm not saying, but just the training, the basic training that could happen within, you know, a location, or bringing in guest speakers or taking them out, but it becomes a place to offer that possibility to kids that don't know how to hook up, or they don't know what the possibilities are.
Well, and again, not to take up too much time, we're bringing in a speaker on September 21st to this room
For teens?
for CERT.
Oh, uh-huh.
And in addition to that, you know, Warrenton does have its own CERT team, just like Gerhardt has one. Seaside, this is to recruit for Seaside, but we've Seaside high school students be involved with CERT. We just like to get that a little more active.
Right. Well, and if there's any way we can work together, yeah, I think this program is to complement what's already in place. It's not to replace it, but offer opportunities for this specific group of teens. And so it might be different paths to the same thing. Yeah. Anyone else?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, you know, the thing that I like about 4-H, and I've been a leader, you know, for 8 years. I'm not active right now. There's opportunity. 4-H is education-based activities
Mm-hmm.
with the Oregon State Extension Service. You know, it has an educational mission.
Yep.
And, you know, it needs a place to live, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand that. And in this group of teens here, 14 and up, that's an area that I think, you know, is underserved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for us as a park district to find those activities that will act as a magnet for these kids. I thought, you know, when you're looking at services like this, right now there would be a need for kids who are in a position to learn leadership skills, to volunteer, and to work at the call center at Camp Wailea for the public health.
I'm going to be there tomorrow again.
There's no reason a kid, as long as he was not in school or needed to be in school, but I thought of the National Guard because that's where the call center is right now. But we used to have, Seaside High School had a mentor in a way, a fellow named Jeff Corliss, and I saw him at some of our stakeholder meetings. He's still around, but the National Guard might be a really interesting partner to have with some of these projects,
Mm-hmm.
such as emergency management or, you know, possible, not necessarily a military career, but the military does a lot of things. When things are tough around here, the National Guard will roll out generators, you know, and things like that, and organize CB radios, contact and so on with local groups, local clubs. I saw that happen here in 2007. It was really remarkable. But I just wanted to talk about the education-based activity. And a lot of, you know, the education can be fun.
No, it hopefully should, because that, I mean, this is not graded, it's not tested, it's not evaluated in any traditional way. It's a non-judgmental opportunity for kids to explore and build their own interests and voice. And so with that in mind, based on what the teens are interested in is kind of where we would start, and then look for folks that can offer and help supplement the opportunities. But and I guess the last thing, and I'm not going to take any more time here, a lot of teens in my 40 years of being involved with this age group, particularly ones that are kind of non-traditional, are more comfortable when they're able to be of service for something else, and they learn through it how to care not only for themselves and their families and their communities, but it's that piece of giving back that is a very tender-hearted kind of part of growing up and learning how to work hard, and you know, the resilience piece as you know, give your animal off to market, or if it's in any kind of program that you have to work hard and you're proud of yourself for what you've achieved. And I do see, and I've, you know, as I say, I've been a teacher in a lot of places in this Northwest area that's happened. But in the last few years, as things are changing, and right now, you know, the proposal, getting back to the purpose, is to find a home where the kids can count on going to for this school year, starting October 1st, because that will have given the schools a chance and the students a chance to kind of settle into their rhythms, their routines, their choices for, you know, do they have a place to go after school? Are they going to work? And from my own personal experience in this area, when COVID hit, a lot of students who had been in, you know, kind of alternative programs were faced with the possibility that they had to go to work because their families needed help. And I see them, and perhaps you do too, and they have lost the opportunity to even think about moving ahead in school for those reasons. So,
Celeste, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just sort of a quick question around, am I understanding correctly that this would be a startup of the 4-H leadership? I mean, 4-H has existed in our county, correct? I mean,
yeah, no, 4-H is all over in our
Right.
county. It's at this
club.
point. Sorry.
This club would be a startup.
This is a new innovative model for a group of students at a time when there just haven't been the cohesive kinds of offerings or places to offer them.
I was just trying to get a better sense. Are you relocating this group from someplace else?
No.
You're looking to start up a new...
No.
Okay.
Sandra has led a group she calls Teen Leadership, and it did a summer camp, and it has a little bit of this and a little of that. This is more based on kind of the next level up, which is not only trying them, but then stepping up to, you know, for example, you know, whether there's minor construction that's possible, to do fundraisers before Christmas on, you know, products, which would be, you know, designer dog houses, you know, things that involve skill sets that younger kids just are not likely to be able to undertake on their own. And so it represents that. And then the safe use of tools, and just a variety of things that are mainly only offered to older kids. And certainly I know that there's more career technical opportunities happening this year. I also know that sometimes the CTE leaders are going to be very stretched to be able to provide all the different opportunities and be as flexible in what they offer based on teen interests. So, but that's, yeah.
Go ahead, Sue.
The only other additional tie-in I would give you is something called Aspire, which is at the high school.
Sure, yes.
And the goal of Aspire is to be able to start at 8th grade. And it's never had the funding and the benefit to do that. And so I feel like a program like this might get some of those kids, you know, when I had a senior who could not go to his dream school because he messed up his freshman year. I mean, when age 14, it would be nice to tie that in to, you know, doing your best even as a freshman.
Yes.
I think that would be nice to have that type of benefit, because the high school can't do it yet.
Right. Well, thank you for that input.
So I just had a couple thoughts. First, I'm hoping that you're in touch with Marion at the library, because she runs Teen Tuesdays and teens are a passion of hers.
Yes.
And she would have a lot of connections. Okay, that would be excellent.
Well, and I actually talked to her about a year ago, and I know that she's done some things with teens just as Sandra has. And I would not duplicate. There's no point in duplicating things, and it's not supposed to. But this is, it threads the needle to, without, anyway, how do I want to say this? Offers the teens the choice to start with. That's a big deal that I think right now, given this last year of screen time and a real kind of confusion for this age and this demographic to start kind of coming back. And the one, I think the biggest challenge if we do it at the Sunset Recreation Center is to have teens perceive that as their space and not just the old Broadway Middle School where Skylar said he went to school. And first year I substitute taught. It was at my old junior high in Medford, and I kept thinking that somebody was going to come down and ask me for my hall pass, you know. So it will have to be reinvented from the teens' point of view, where they are driving the interests and the want to move ahead in certain areas.
So I would like to say, personally, I think 4-H is a great fit. However, I know that, I don't know if you're aware, but we are currently in the process of conducting a best use plan for that space.
Mm-hmm.
So even with like our renter, the Northwest Regional Education Service District, it's a short-term rental because we don't entirely know what that space is going to be needed for. So while I appreciate that you want a permanent home for this program, that may not necessarily be the long-term solution at the SRC. So as long as we are aware of that, then yeah. So I think what you need from us to have discussion about is you're looking for like a one room, particularly a science room that you can kind of dedicate to this program and leave supplies and projects, and that potentially the students can, you know, modify or make paint or, you know, make their own. And it sounds like rent is not necessarily an option at this point because it's a startup program. Maybe they can do some fundraising kind of a thing. Is that kind of where, am I understanding?
That's, yes.
Okay.
And I also have a sense from some of the folks that are taking the 4-H leadership training and also just the community in general that if we build it, they will donate too, because there's actually limits. And I think that people really do see the urgent need to address this group of kids and close the gap, I think is how Michael put it when I was talking to him on the phone.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Any further questions or discussion for Mary? Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, Skylar, for manning everything there. There we go.
Squared away that.
Next on the agenda is, where are we? Thank you, Mary.
11B.
Staff presentation schedule.
Thank you. So I included.
Which is page 30. Or no, it's not 30. Yes, it is 30.
Yeah, page 30.
Okay, fabulous. Getting
A
tired.
short memo, similar to other years. We'd like to finalize kind of our schedule for presentations or sharing of information to the board. From my perspective, I value the work of our staff and want them to have opportunities to share their hard work, share their excellence, and also just to get to know you more and vice versa. So I think these presentations are important. I've laid out a tentative schedule of those reports with all all of our full-time staff, or essentially all of our full-time staff. I also want to point out, in looking at the calendar for the year ahead, the board decided to keep their meetings on the fourth Tuesday, which is great, but there are 2 Tuesdays which may be challenging for some depending on holiday schedules. So that was the other point of this agenda. If the board has thoughts on this presentation schedule or on those 2 meetings, I'm happy to hear it and adjust or move forward with this as proposed.
So I was wondering if it would be possible to move Erin up in the schedule, solely because Shelley was scheduled to present for youth programs right before she resigned. So we
Sure.
have not heard from youth programs in quite some time, and I know Erin's got a lot of great ideas, and I would love to hear from her well before April would be, yeah.
Okay?
And I think Levi was actually the last one that we heard from, like right before Shelley, or was it Justin or Levi?
I don't remember, sorry. There's been a lot of stuff, but I would be happy to maybe just swap Erin for Levi's month. Does
I mean,
sound-
not that I don't want to hear from Levi, but I know we haven't heard from youth programs in a really long time.
Sure. Let's move forward with that as discussed. I'm good with that. Any other thoughts or questions?
Melissa's on the 21st. What time, were you planning us to be here at 5:15 when CERT's going to have our speaker at 4:30?
Sorry, is that the right date? That seems early in the month. The 21st.
September 21st is the CERT.
So, yeah, that date should be the
It's the
28th.
20
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I went with the third Tuesday
Yeah.
again. Old habits died hard. But that would be the 28th. So no conflict there, Sue. Yep.
The other question I have, and this may be more of a preference question for Chris, is does he want to do his presentation when we're getting into budget season? Or would he like to go have one less thing on his plate during that time?
I think, I don't know for Chris, I haven't asked him that question. With previous finance managers, they wanted to do it on the same night as a budget meeting because that was one night that they knew they would already be here
Okay.
and be available in the evening. But I can ask Chris, and if he would like to change, maybe we can swap him with somebody.
I would just, if he feels like he wants to take that on in the midst of all of the chaos, then
Sure.
more power to him.
Any other thoughts? And does anyone have any, I guess, do we want to?
So the holiday conflicts, potential conflicts.
Correct.
So I'm assuming you're talking about November and December where we have
Yeah, so
no
that's the
staff.
Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Just 2 days before, which is fine by me. I plan on being here. The December one is in between, obviously, the Christmas holiday and New Year's, which might be a little trickier for people's schedules. But we could adjust as we get closer. And who knows what the world will look like in November and December.
I personally, for myself, do not have plans at this time, so that's not a hardship for me, but I'm not the only one on the board, so. Anybody else have fabulous vacation plans that they will not be around? Okay.
Okay, we'll
I
keep
think
them
we're
as
okay.
scheduled.
And
Sounds
if that changes, we can always bump it forward or after whatever. Thank you, everybody.
Good.
New business, we did that. The requirement for the district staff to be vaccinated discussion. You want to kick that off?
Sure. So I guess I wanted to kind of put this, I guess, I know the board knows what's going on, and I feel like I've tried to keep you informed about district updates and our staff's having to handle this situation. I know it's not unique. Every business is dealing with challenges, and every even family and individual is probably dealing with challenges as this situation kind of expands again and increases its presence. It's a really difficult time. I think it's kind of it's a little hard to talk about just because I feel like it's hitting in very personal ways right now in our community, and with people that we all probably know and want the best for their health. It also makes it very challenging for staff as these situations arise where we have a positive case either amongst a youth participant or a staff member or a staff's family member, and it requires a fairly significant amount of extra work and intense work for a short period of time as we work with the public health department and make decisions and then try to communicate those decisions out in an effective way so that we're reaching the population that we need to reach. I do want to share before I forget that I think our public health department is a wonderful resource, and they've been extremely valuable throughout this whole pandemic in helping the district guide through these challenging situations. Since we've kind of began the pandemic, we've had about 10 of our employees test positive at some point. Most of those were before the vaccine became available, but we have had 4 in the last couple of months that have tested positive. And 2 of the 4 of those were vaccinated, 2 were obviously not. And each time I feel like it happens, it impacts our ability to focus on our mission and to serve the community. And it challenges us. And I guess it's our position, my position, the staff's position, that this is something that we need to consider, that it needs to be a board decision, but that implementing a vaccine requirement for staff would likely limit the spread of COVID amongst our staff and from patron to staff. We feel like we have a lot of we have a lot of staff that are kind of on the front lines in their service, in their care, working with children who aren't able to be vaccinated or aren't vaccinated yet, and then also working with the general population. We know that it's not everybody has received the vaccination rate, and we are serving those people as well as those that are vaccinated. I've been in contact with other folks that have implemented this at their district or in other government agencies, and it is something that you can do. It is legal. Worked with our council to ensure that it was legal. We would have to provide some exemptions for medical and religious reasons if there was employees that sought those accommodations. I think another consideration that I want to share is that it could impact employment of some of our current employees who have chosen not to get vaccinated up to this point and have indicated that's kind of their position and that they would probably rather leave employment with the district rather than get vaccinated. But I think for me, I'm really just concerned about the general health of our staff and our community as we try to serve the public. I think we have an obligation to do that and fulfill our mission in that way, but it's very challenging when we have positive cases that impact that ability. One recent situation included, I'm just going to read this because I want to make sure I get the details right, included an unvaccinated staff testing positive, but before that test occurred, that staff likely transmitted the virus to at least one or maybe more of our staff, some which were vaccinated, some which weren't, as well as to children. And that's an extremely uncertain position, I think, for the district to be in, that we are contributing perhaps to the spread of this to a child who are, children are already vulnerable, as well as, our senior population. So it's just something that is weighing heavily, I think, on all of our minds. As you know, the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine, and other vaccines have been granted emergency approval, but it seems like those other vaccines, the full approval will be coming soon. So this is fresh in my mind as last night, myself and a couple of other staff members spent multiple hours on the phone from like 8 to 10 p.m. calling parents and telling them that unfortunately our preschool rooms were going to have to be closed. That was a really hard conversation, and I think to their credit, the parents were understanding by and large, but it's still a really hard thing to tell a parent that their child was exposed, and perhaps this requirement, if it were in place, might have prevented that. So I'll leave that kind of setting of the table to you, and look forward to hearing your feedback.
Go ahead, Celeste.
So I'm in total agreement. I think making it a requirement. I understand that there's controversy around it, but we are, I think it is part of our role to role model health and well-being in our community, and I feel like all the science tells us that vaccination is the way to do that. I know that we have, I happen to have a relative who is a nurse in Southern Oregon who is experiencing one of the worst outbreaks in the country currently. And 95% of the people who are in the ICU or on vents, 95% are unvaccinated. And so this is a huge problem, and I think we should set an example here, in my opinion. And you know, I would hope that through some counsel and education, we would not permanently lose any of our staff. But in the end, it is, I think it is best for the community that we're serving. And I also have a lot of concern because we're not serving, I agree with you about the young people and having COVID passed to the young people, but young people are also the carriers that bring it to our seniors. And I have a lot of concern that we have, we don't have just one population that we're serving. We have several vulnerable populations, and for that reason, I wholeheartedly would agree with the idea of requiring staff to be vaccinated.
Mike? Yeah.
Well said. I fully support the requirement for vaccinating all of our staff. I think we have tremendous responsibility to do that. There's been a shift, you know, with the focus of vaccinating, you know, some of the older population, and we still don't have a vaccine that serves the younger population with 16 and under. And no, we
12.
need to protect those kids. That's a big part of our group. You know, the older the adults, if they decide not to get vaccinated, that's too bad. You know, it's irrational not to consider this, and I fully support making this a requirement.
Sue? You have
I also I appreciate what Celeste just said, and I agree, especially with the federal mandate. It gives us more power behind the decision that it is a requirement. I believe that Moderna is literally just a matter of days, if not a week away, and I don't know if we want to wait for that, but I think the fact that we've got Pfizer, and Pfizer is the one you can give to the 12-year-old. I think we should go ahead with, you know, this is a mandate, and we have some federal backup to support that. The one thing that I would caution is we have an employee at Providence whose husband was not vaccinated. He has given her COVID even though she's vaccinated. So it's not, you know, it's not a get out of jail card. So we have to still be careful. We still need to be finding a way to test so that, because that person, that employee for Providence has been staying home, but her case was incredibly mild. And so there is, you know, something to be grateful for with that. But, you know, the fact is you can't mandate the spouse of an employee be vaccinated, and so therefore we're still looking at a vulnerability.
I know with the school district, they were just passing out that you are now required to be vaccinated by, I believe it's October 15th. So they set a date, and their exemptions are the same, you know, religious or medical, and you know, I have 2 small children that are in the youth center programs, and they are not currently able to be vaccinated, and it weighs very heavily on my mind having them exposed. And you know, my older daughter is better about wearing her mask and washing her hands, but my younger one, you know, even though we've talked about it heavily, and she's still little, and she still touches her face, and it is what it is. So I think anything that we can do to help protect those very vulnerable populations at this time is setting a good example. Skylar, out of curiosity, do you have any idea of how much of the staff, just even ballpark?
Yeah, if I were to ballpark it, I would say it's probably around 75% of our staff. Perhaps a
So-
little more, perhaps a little less, though. Of our staff has been vaccinated. Yeah.
So of the 25%, if they were to walk off the job tomorrow, how much of an impact is that going to have on our programming? And I mean,
Yeah. I think it's hard to say. I don't know which individuals. I know some that have elected not to get vaccinated, but I don't know everyone. So it's hard to say what impact that would have to our service. I think my personal opinion, I guess, is if we were to proceed down this road, I would like to provide the staff with adequate time to maybe, obviously receive the vaccination if they so chose, but before that, even to get educated more or learn more about it and help answer some of the questions that they may have. And also help kind of us refine how the exemptions would work if they were sought after. So I think given that maybe prolonged time period, similar to what is going to happen with the schools throughout the state, that might give us a better understanding of, okay, we know that we're probably going to have a hole or these holes, and how to kind of plug them and adapt moving forward.
would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that we support the requirement for district staff to be vaccinated, pending a provision for policies and a timeline to be worked out by staff.
And I will second that.
Thank you, Celeste and Sue. All in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Sue?
Aye.
Celeste?
Aye?
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you. May I ask a question? Is it the hope of the board that staff will have this policy already in place by, let's say, like our next meeting in September, or is it the hope that we will bring a policy to the board and say, you'd like something in place quicker than that, from what I understand?
I think we're giving you permission to move
Okay.
ahead
I
and
just wanted to
implement at the
clarify.
pace that you feel is fit.
So I would expect the deadline will probably not, we won't meet that before the September meeting, which is the 28th, but we'll have a policy in place in the next week or two, and then the deadline would probably be, maybe October 15th or after, so we're sort of moving at a pace that's reasonable.
One
And
thing,
I was just going to say, and just, and I'm sure you already are or in your mind, but make sure to work with legal counsel on
Sure.
any religious exemptions or medical exemption,
Yeah,
documents or anything like
we
that.
will do that, absolutely.
and,
Go ahead,
and
Sue.
basically it was actually on the news, how do you talk to somebody who refuses? And, it was not an argument, the physician's comment was, you do not argue, you listen, because generally you will unearth a fear, and you just need to listen to find that, and then, be able to give the appropriate counseling so that they can make an informed decision.
Thank you.
And I would just like to offer thanks to everyone that is currently on the front lines, which I do consider all of our Parks and Rec staff to be, that is working with those vulnerable populations and working with the public and taking those risks. I appreciate every one of them, so thank you. Executive Director report.
All right, thank you. I think I can be fairly brief on this, but really excited to share some of these updates. First is kind of just an overall staffing update, as I shared electronically, I think, with the board. Chris McAllister has begun serving as our district finance manager. He started work last Monday, and he's doing a great job. We had a strong applicant pool, but Chris has worked for the district for a number of years in other areas of the district, in youth programs and in aquatics. He's also worked in our finance department over the last couple of years. And then during this time, this interim time, he and Darren Gooch provided all of our finance department needs in terms of all the things that needed to get done. So he was a great applicant, and I'm happy that he's begun his time with us, and I think he's going to fit in really nicely with the needs of the district and our growth. I wanted to share a little update on staffing levels. Again, this is not unique to the district, as every business and organization in our community and on the coast, I think, is really struggling. But we certainly haven't been exempt from just having not enough staff, and really, I think that my perception of it is that we have a large group of staff who are being stretched very thin this summer, and it's made for really hard, working conditions and just long days, and some of these positions are really challenging, working with kids all day, or working in an aquatic setting and teaching classes, doing that kind of thing. It's hard work. So I'm grateful for the staff that have what I would say risen, to a very high level in their performance and their dedication to the district. But by my perception, we're down 3 to 5 youth program positions and at least 4 aquatic positions from what we should be at right now with our current programming.
And can I just quickly
Sure.
interject? And some of that is due to staff leaving for college, not
Exactly,
necessarily.
yeah. So we've had a number of staff that have had to leave in the last week or two, or are leaving soon. High school students that are obviously starting back to school, and then college students that are returning to college. So we kind of expect those, but there's also been a number of other staff that we're struggling, or that we just haven't been able to retain or fill those positions for. So just kind of wanted to share that. Again, grateful for the work of the program staff, and especially our youth programs staff. Aaron is doing a great job. Justin, in directing our programs, is doing a wonderful job, as well as our aquatic staff and all their hard work this summer.
Is it, I know everybody is experiencing this, but is it compensation? Is it housing? Is it, do we know? Like,
So I think
what
with
for
those-
our specific, because we're such a specialized niche, I guess, versus,
Sure.
the tourism industry.
I think with the part-time positions, it's a combination of lots of things. And I don't know if I would be able to say, rank them. I think it's the issues you mentioned. It's that I think there's a lot of concern from the workforce about working with vulnerable populations right now. If it was me and I was looking for a job, that would be something that I would consider, and I think that's something that most people would probably consider. I think that it's also, like I said, it's not an easy position. Not that any of the jobs in the tourism field are, but it's also less lucrative, probably. You're not working for tips.
Yeah.
You're not kind of capitalizing on some of the market efficiencies that are there in like the downtown core businesses, right? You're doing something a little more thankless, I would say, and probably less financially rewarding, at least in the short term. So that's part of it. We've always struggled kind of with some of those positions, but I think just this summer has really amplified the challenge. And I don't know if any of you heard or read or saw last week, the City Council in Astoria had a special meeting to talk about the staffing shortages in their Parks and Rec departments, specifically with their youth programs, or their Little Sprouts program is what they call it up there, and then their aquatics program. So it's something that's really challenging, and they're considering some pretty significant changes to some of their programs to help still provide the services to the community, but not necessarily be in the financial and staffing position that they are now.
Just as a side note, last year when COVID was happening, we did kind of a staff appreciation dinner drive-through thing. Could we maybe organize something like that for an end of the summer
Yes.
appreciation?
Yes, we are tentatively planning on doing something, or we were until this last couple weeks has kind of sort of impacted our desire to gather the staff together, bring everybody together. But we are going to do something safe For staff, it's kind of a secret, so
Okay.
I don't want them to know right now, but
If you need board help, I'm
Sure.
volunteering.
thank you.
Agreed. I was going to ask about incentivization because I think what we want to do is keep our strong staff
Yes.
intact, and whether or not there is room, particularly given that if we're down, if there's budgetary room to make sure that we're taking care of our, the staff that we want. And I'm also curious about looking at whether or not, in a time when we have staff shortages, while I know it's tough to do, whether or not there are things that we should put a hold on currently to allow staff a little more bandwidth to cover the things that are fundamental and sort of key requirements for the district. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've looked at that.
I think we have, yeah, we kind of, it's really great that the summer is coming to a close. I think we'll say that. This next week, at least our youth programs are going to be dark. We don't have any programming for next week, and then the week after we start our regular school programming, and once we get into that kind of cycle, there's so much, we don't need as many staff because we're not serving, the 50 kids every day in summer camp, plus preschool. We'll just be serving preschool age students and then the after school program. That is, I guess, unless the school district plans change. So, yeah, kind of a lot going on, but I appreciate your support and just wanted to make sure that the number of dedicated staff that I think are really, like I said, being stretched but rising and meeting that challenge. The last thing, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say we have amazing staff.
Yeah.
So.
The last thing, and I believe I included in the packet, was just an update to the organizational chart. This is new with one change since the organizational chart came out in the budget packet in the spring. But with the hiring of Chris as the finance manager, we've repositioned that role to be under the director of operations, which was something that we had kind of tentatively planned on when we filled that role, or at some point in the future we were planning on making that change. But this seemed like a good time to do it. So I think the organization is kind of laid out pretty efficiently from my perception right now. There's obviously some areas that I think we'll have to adjust as we move forward and increase our programming. But happy to be in a position where we are and feel like we're really kind of as much as we can, given the circumstances that we're all working in, sort of hitting our stride as an effective team of leaders and staff.
One other change that I noticed is the human resources consultant. Is that HR Answers, or is that a separate entity?
Yeah, so right now we don't have a contract out with HR Answers, with the exception of that third-party reporting. So
Okay.
that's in place still. What we're doing right now is kind of evaluating the possibility of adding either HR Answers or a different provider, or maybe even hiring an HR person in-house, either part-time or full-time. I think that's kind of on the long term, like in the next fiscal year, that a decision will be made on that, maybe sooner, but it's just we're not quite ready to make that change yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And
Well,
then
it's the director of programs has sure got his hands full.
he does,
That's
yeah.
That's an awful lot
He does.
of weight on that. You think that'll change?
I think it's very possible that would be an area where we add additional staff. The good thing with that particular position is that he has very capable staff serving in those areas. So he has a number of full-time staff kind of lifting up the program perspective with a special events manager, youth programs, a coordinator, and an aquatic coordinator that are all full-time positions.
Yeah,
But it is a heavy lift.
he's up for it.
Yeah, I think so too. A few other updates. Just wanted to share, I'll have a full report on our summer programs and aquatic programs, but overall, as we wrap up the end of summer here in the next week or two, I think that we've had a very strong summer in terms of engagement and participation, and I'm really pleased that we are in a position with the acquisition of the SRC and I think what has turned out to be very practical hiring solutions and organizational restructuring to serve a really good part of our population. So just really, really pleased with that. Some of the highlights I think would be, essentially a full summer camp and full preschool right now. We have preschool registration open for the fall, and it's looking really robust as well. And we're expanding our preschool to have 3 preschool classrooms instead of 2, and more seats available as we hopefully are able to transition from COVID rules to back to kind of normal rules in the next little while. Obviously not right now. Our aquatic programs have we've had the strongest swim lesson participation that we've ever had, at least from what I can tell, in the district's history. This individual that we hired to do our private swim lessons has really helped the district improve in that area. So I'm grateful for that, and good things happening. And again, I'll provide a more thorough update down the road here. A few special events or reports that I just wanted to share. That we've had a busy month or two with some of these events. We had our chalk art contest at the end of July, and that went really well. It was the first time we've obviously done it, and it was kind of done to provide another event to celebrate the prom centennial. But we wanted to do something different than a 5K run or something necessarily physical even. So I think this was an awesome fit. I'm really happy that we had we hired a couple of folks from Portland to come down and sort of lead a class the night before that had great participation, and then they helped the participants on the day of. We had the mayor and others, including Michael, come as judges. We had, I think, 33 separate entries, and most of the entries had multiple people working on them, and some that were just, mind-boggling on how cool they were and how well detailed they were. And the feedback that we've gotten, it's kind of a double-edged sword, is when you start a really great event, everybody wants it to continue. We were sort of thinking of this as a one-time event, but we're going to look into it and see if we can make it an annual thing, because I think it's really special, and even some folks have told us that this could become like the sandcastle contest is in Cannon Beach.
No. Kite Festival
and
/
Kite Festival.
Chalk
Okay.
Festival.
All right.
There you
Well,
go. We don't want to compete with Cannon Beach.
Here's one idea.
Kites.
We
Kite
had,
Festival.
moving on, we had our prom 100-year events that we took part in with many other community groups. So we had a float in the parade, and thankful to Catherine and her daughters for being there on the parade, and I know several others were involved in some way. Our IT team provided the technology for the ceremony down at the prom, so thanks to Darren and Adam for helping with that. And I think that was a really fun and great event, minus the unusually wet weather for August. Last week we had our Break the Chain run. We did not have necessarily an overwhelming amount of people that registered and participated, but we did have great sponsors, and we're going to be able to donate about $1,000 to Operation Underground Railroad, which is a nonprofit to end child sex trafficking. A couple other events coming up. We have our track meet on September 1st, Wednesday, and that's going to be, I think, really fun and a unique event. It's, again, something that we've never done before. And grateful to Erica, who's not here, for kind of her vision and leadership on that. And then our farmers market continues for about another month, but it's been great. We've had, on average more than 1,000, but typically around 1,100 every Wednesday. And as the season kind of gets on, we have more produce available, which is always a draw for those that are visiting us. I think that was it for the special events. Catherine did want me to add a section about the crosswalk discussion, which the board discussed a month or two ago in this meeting, and was able to meet with representatives from the city of Seaside, as well as Kathy from Sunset Empire Transit, who's a great resource. Kathy has since shared a couple of grant opportunities that would probably be applicable to this. They're large and competitive grants, so Melissa has already kind of begun sort of scoping out the project and looking at the grant process. I think we're probably a little ways away from fulfilling the grant, but what we have to decide, I think, and I'm going to probably try to reconnect with that group of people, is we kind of agreed on some temporary first step solutions, and then if those solutions don't address or help rectify this problem, then we'll move to something a little more grandiose down the road. Just wanted to make sure that you knew that we were working on that.
Thank you, Skylar.
I think that's about it for my update, unless there's other things that the board would like me to discuss.
Any questions for Skylar?
Excuse me?
Any questions for Skylar?
Well, gee, probably could have a bunch of them, but I don't have any immediately. I was interested in the, we got copied on that appraisal on the Chamber of Commerce building. Everything, and we haven't had any discussion on that. I don't know what the next step is with that, but I was looking at that, and maybe I should save it for public comment. I don't know. Wondering what we're going to do with the appraisal.
Sue?
I have a question about the next step regarding the presentation we heard tonight. What do we do next?
That is a very good question, Sue.
I guess my recommended action would be that I would appreciate the board supporting me working with Mary and Sandra, who wasn't able to be here tonight, but is the staff member, and kind of refining a little bit more about what they need. I think it, I guess my feeling is that it's a good, if not great fit for the SRC. I do have some concerns, but I think they're probably the ones that you also have. But I don't think it's wise to rule it out right now, because it would serve this part of the population that we'd really like to get to. I didn't know until tonight that they weren't planning on serving middle schoolers, and I guess my personal position is that I really think that that's a really important and underserved population. I'm not saying we should choose them over the high school population, but I think maybe is there a way, I wonder, to have both populations be served. Maybe they're in separate spaces or separate days. I just know that there's a real dearth of programming, after-school programming and after-school options, healthy options for kids, especially those that aren't, in sports or can't do sports for whatever reason. So.
One consideration that I think that I'm hoping, and we won't know until we hear more back from our consultants about the highest and best use of the facility, but I know that there's lots of discussion around flexible space that could be used for community partners, and so I hope staff is thinking about sort of the array of offerings that we might have, and how some of them might be offered by Park and Rec, and how some might be offered by community partners, and how that might work out in flexible space. And how we cost justify that, like
Sure.
how do we, because lots of our programs don't necessarily bring in additional funds. On the other hand, if we have community partners running some of the programming that's offered from the Sunset Recreation Center, we're not spending staff time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something to consider. Yeah.
That's true.
I think when I was listening to her presentation, when I first knew that she was coming to present, my thought was it was going to be more of the Northwest Regional, where they wanted to rent a specific chunk of our building and have that be their space. So when she started talking about only, meeting, once a week, every other week, or, however, it wasn't very much time. So then I was thinking, well, maybe she just needs to, rent a community space, which we could do. But then, then she got into the whole, well, we want to, make it our own space and paint the walls or construct or do things. And, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it would be great if we could have like a community room that they could go and reserve and spend time in and kind of make it their own a little bit, but not still have it available for those other community partners to come in on those other days when they're not in there and use that space. And maybe we could work out something where they have a storage space for their projects or something that's maybe not necessarily in that community room.
Yeah.
That I understand that they want to have their own space, but maybe because they're only using it for such a small time, that we could make it available to other community partners anyway. I would support you continuing to flesh that out, and I think it would be a great fit. It's definitely a need, and I mean, it's something that we've talked about repeatedly in our youth work group sessions is teen programming. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where we're leaving it.
I agree with that, but I'm also curious about, you know, if they take a space, how are we asking them to pay for that? Because it sounds like it's fundraising, and maybe, I guess I'm just a little concerned about
Well,
that.
and that's kind of where I was going more with the, if we offer them like a community space,
Right.
where they're just using it for part of the time, like, you know, we rent the Mary Blake, you're used to rent the Mary Blake, you know, for 4 hours to community members, you know, so can we work out something like that where it's, you know, you can have this once a week for 4 hours, and that's your time, and then it's available to other community partners.
An interesting use for the clubhouse, which was the scout house, you know, but, Mary has mentioned to me that they're perfectly capable of writing grants too, to help fund
Yeah.
these things, and with their connectivity with the extension service, that's a real possibility.
And I love the idea of having it in South County, you know, because while we are South County, we serve all the way, you know, down towards
I
Tillamook.
got connected with 4-H, because I always thought 4-H would be a great way of bringing programming, you know, opportunities into young people. Mary Blake was executive director, and it was Susan Brooks, whom I met, and I met him at an open house. It was an open house or parent-teacher night or something up at Seaside Heights, and they had a table set up and everything,
Yeah.
and I kind of got to know him. And,
So,
they like having their bingo night down here. They know about us. They do quite well. You know, it's impressive what they accomplish. And the fair this year was tough, and
yeah.
that's how I met Mary. I was out there volunteering at the pancake breakfast, the fundraiser for the 4-H, and ran into Mary, and we just started chatting about what we were doing, you know, networking.
Yeah.
And that's how she ended up, you know, brainstorming this stuff here tonight.
So I think we'll leave that one kind of up to you to flesh out, Skylar.
Okay. I will share back as we move forward.
Skylar, is it okay if I photocopy this on my scanner and send this out, because my friends at Kiwanis are asking about the track meet?
Sure.
And they want information, so I'd like
Yeah,
to kind of...
I mean, Mike, I can send you that document if you want. You don't have to scan it.
Yeah, that'd be easy.
I should have mentioned that. I wanted to include just a snippet of the press releases that we've sent out, because I think it's important to show how we are trying to really communicate, not just about our events, but we've sent out press releases about, you know, when we have a staff test positive and other programmatic changes that affect our community. I think we're really, we've really increased our efforts in that area over the past few months, and it's 99% attributed to the great work of Melissa.
Do you feel like that's getting picked up successfully? Like, are you noticing that that's...
I do, yeah. I think it's gotten a lot of traction with the local paper, because it's really easy, I think, for RJ and even folks at the Astorian, I don't know who makes those editorial decisions, to just reprint, you know, what we've said, which I think is great. And they almost always publish it online and link it on Facebook pretty quickly, so it's getting the word out through their channels as well as through ours. It seems to be a very effective tool for our population, at least.
I have one other question. Did the group, the Northwest group did they increase their space? Did they take the space?
Yeah, they've been using the building since the 2nd of August, and it's going really great. We have a weekly meeting with them to make sure that we're kind of working through any challenges. There's been, you know, a couple like small little hiccups that we've had to address, but good communication by them and hard work by our facilities and maintenance team has helped rectify that. They did end up leasing all 5 of the classrooms, and then the conference room, as well as the admin space that had been previously discussed. Yeah, I think again the agreement is a good one. They don't have a lot of staff in the building right now, and I'm not sure exactly, with COVID and everything else that's going on, how that will play out. But they have had some staff in, and they are making some improvements in their spaces with paint and carpet and those types of things.
And that was my next question, because if I recall correctly, Levi had talked about reinforcing the floor, and so that's being, what you were just saying, sounds like that's being done.
Yeah, you mean reinforcing, like, sorry, that's a...
He talked about putting an
Layers.
extra coating of wax.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think, our position is that we're not going to, touch the floor, because that could be problematic for us. But yeah, if they had requested us to put an additional layer of wax on, we probably would have. I think they're very interested in carpet to improve the acoustics and then just the general aesthetic of the rooms that they're occupying. So they're going to install carpet in, I think, just about all of their spaces over the next few weeks.
Yeah. All right, should we move on to board comment? All right, Sue.
I believe what I would say, especially in the lieu of some personal challenges, my word for this month is just gratitude. Gratitude for the hardworking team that is in place through Skylar down through the entire staff, as they have faced challenge after challenge. And I am very grateful for, despite different challenges, that they've met those, and they've met them pretty much with a smile, maybe a shrug, but a smile. And I'm just grateful for that, as I'm grateful that I can come in and go to the pool. It's still open. I'm grateful for the mitigation processes that are in place, and that the hard work that the staff just does to meet the needs of the individual client, no matter what they're faced, and they do it with a smile. So I'm simply grateful. And I may be leaving something out, but I think we've persevered through quite a bit, and I'm grateful to Skylar for hanging in there. So I just say thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Celeste?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I'll echo what Sue says. I think given how hard our times are, I think the Park and Rec District is providing a bright spot in our community, and that is due to the dedication and hard work of staff. And Skylar, just a big shout out to you for shepherding the district through the challenges that you've had, but at the same time juggling the awesome opportunities that we have in front of us, including, it's great to hear the update about the chalk art contest and what that might contribute to our community, and of course all the new SRC stuff is really fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Mike?
Yes, I want to follow that note. I think we should be grateful, and I am grateful that things are going generally as well as we can be expected, with this resurgent COVID, particularly. I'm hoping that, I wanted to ask, and this is a good time, how are we doing on our permanent certificate of occupancy on the SRC?
It's a great question. we had our architect that we're working with through Open Space Architecture was with us. I think 2 weeks ago, and he said that he would have a report to us by the end of August. So I expect that in the next couple of days. That may present some small things that we need to adjust in terms of the occupancy, and then we will work with the architect to present that plan to the city of Seaside. But I think we're progressing nicely, and although it's taking a little bit longer, I think we're going to get to the destination that we needed to get to.
Thank you. It's been an interesting meeting.
Thanks, Mike. For myself, I would just like to echo all my fellow board members. I truly am thankful for our staff. They are providing excellent service and filling a need in the community. I know my kids are excited to go to summer camp. I see little kids that are super excited to go swim. I drive by every morning and there's people walking up to go do their exercise classes. I mean, people need a place to go to recreate and to have a safe space to gather. So I'm thankful for all that. And I appreciate that we made a controversial, hard decision today, but I think it's what's best for our community to lead the way and to keep everyone safe, particularly our vulnerable population. So I appreciate the board, I appreciate Skylar, and with that, meeting adjourned.
You know, those kids learning to swim is as good as a vaccination because it can save their life too.